Es mi thumb drive de mi clase, so habrá muchas cosas que es for my class, así que más lectura. So I'm trying to use the slide deck, which is more apt for industry. The last time Antonio invited me, I tried to hint that I think there are lessons that we can learn, this community can learn, from our experiences with IT outsourcing. I didn't get the time to put my thoughts into a more structured format, so this time I've tried to do that. Perfecto, gracias. So this is my big story. I think there are lessons from IT outsourcing that can help us in the cloud computing space. But before I start off with that, I need you to agree with me that there is a lot of similarity between IT outsourcing and cloud computing. And for you to agree with me, I'm going to present just two aspects. This, you'll agree with me if you will take a second to read through the benefits. These are the benefits of what? Of what are these the benefits? If I told you that these are the benefits of IT outsourcing, would you agree with me? Reducing cost, delivers agility, again, cost, simplifies IT, it streamlines business, I don't have to maintain software and hardware. That is exactly why we went to service providers in India or service providers wherever we went to in the 80s, 90s, and all the way to 2005 maybe. But this is actually what is published by IAOP as the advantages of cloud computing. And this is from last year. So if I had not given you this title, we would have been equally okay accepting these as the benefits of IT outsourcing or the benefits of cloud computing. If I look, I just break this down into three big heads: cost, flexibility, and growth. And my apologies for the font clarity, because IAOP's report has this particular image not very clear. But if I look at the headings here, it's the same: the cost, flexibility, and growth. I'm going to leave this here for a second, and I come back to this picture later. This is the risks that they list under cloud computing. I have blocked off some of these. You can't read the font. Again, it's small. But I want to convince you that these risks are risks that we've heard of before in the context of IT outsourcing. If we think about what are the concerns that industry has faced with cloud computing maybe in the last 3-4 years, the discussions we have are what should stay with the vendor and what should stay in-house. What should stay in my locality and what should go to the public cloud. This is the same argument we had when we talked about offshoring or keeping it in-house. Whether the vendor should have control over my data, or will I lose my competitive advantage? Will they share my data with my competition? This is the same kind of questions. Increasingly, we've also wanted innovation from the IT outsourcing vendor. It is not just cost that we look for when they come to us. We want innovation from them. This is what I'm proposing we're going to see with Amazon and with our contracts with Amazon or Google or Microsoft. So if you agree with me so far that the benefits that we looked for and the concerns that we have are similar with IT outsourcing and cloud computing, then maybe if I observe how the IT outsourcing industry progressed, I will be able to make a prediction on how the cloud computing industry is going to progress. And therefore, what can we expect from our vendors? What should we demand from them? The one thing that we can all agree with IT outsourcing is that there is no more 10-year contract. Nobody's signing billion-dollar contracts anymore. Okay, they're so rare. What we're doing is signing a 1+3 contract, which means we sign a contract for 1 year and then we agree to renegotiate for more time. We sign smaller contracts in the few thousands. If you look at the top 4, Accenture, KPMG, ADS, they're all willing to sign a few $1,000 contracts now. Contracts are getting smaller. What that means is we have more flexibility as clients. We can be more efficient. We can go to the market more frequently. We can multi-source. We can give one piece of the contract to a small vendor and another piece of the contract to another vendor, and that's manageable now. we can integrate better between these two vendors. But what does that mean? Why is it that we can do these things? This is what I call the first ITO trend that if you reflect is pretty obvious. So what is the difference between the ITO from the 2000 to the ITO of 2017? It's that we have moved from expecting customized solutions from the vendor to being okay with standardized solutions, because we have realized that when we ask for customized solutions, they take longer, they invest more in my business, and as a result, I am locked into them. When they start renegotiating, I don't have bargaining power as a client. So as clients, we have kind of moved towards flexibility and standardization from the vendor's side. If this is what is happening in outsourcing, I want you to notice one particular trend. I showed you this picture before, but I did not highlight these two boxes. These two boxes reads, adopting new technologies and capabilities such as social, mobile, analytical, and cloud, and enabling innovation. These were not important till about 2012, when cloud computing picked up. After which, we started expecting vendors to provide us new technologies, and vendors, IT outsourcing vendors, who were always the bottom of the pile in our importance, we were expecting them to provide innovation. That's interesting now. Think about the world of offshoring. The programmers that were brought from Bangalore to whether it's Boston or Barcelona were considered the lowest in the rung because they came there, they were given the deliverable, they delivered, and they left. You didn't want them sticking around. Now, because we've lost so many of our people and our competence and the technology is changing so fast, we're going to them and saying, what more can you offer in my business? And that's insightful, because if this is what is happening in outsourcing, look at what's happening in cloud computing now. The infrastructure between Amazon or Google or Microsoft is kind of similar. If they all start offering commodities infrastructure, after some time, they will start looking identical. You've experienced, I'm sure, the proposal from Wipro looks like the proposal from TCS, looks like the proposal from Infosys. So what did you do when you got the same proposals? You flipped to the last page, looked at the price. 8 euros per hour, okay, I go with Infosys. That's what we're doing now with Amazon versus Google with Microsoft. What differentiates one from the other? You can buy Salesforce from here, you can get Salesforce from there. Therefore, how will these people compete? In a few years' time, I think they will come to you and say, we understand your business better. Why don't we give you a solution that's innovative? If you go to Amazon's website, Amazon Web Services website, there are many case studies. There's a company called Lyft, which is the competition to Uber. Lyft explains how much they are grateful for Amazon for their growth. They could ramp up capacity 300% overnight when there was a concert happening or something like that. If you think about this, an interesting question is Lyft outsourcing to Amazon, or is Amazon outsourcing marketing to Lyft? Right? What that means is, as an organization, if I'm in the grocery business, I'm beginning to trust Amazon because they run Whole Foods better than my competition. If I'm in the transportation business, I want Uber to run my transportation. So these providers that have been providing generic cloud computing infrastructure as a service will now step in. We might see, right now the limitation is that you cannot transfer data from Amazon to Google seamlessly, which means there is going to be a market for these things called cloud service brokers. They're going to enable your data transfer between two vendors, and the vendors are probably going to have some kind of a interchangeability possibility. We are already seeing shorter transaction deals. Cloud computing contracts are shorter in general than IT outsourcing because they're more standardized. This is a term that's very academic, relationship specificity. When we got outsourcing providers, we expected them to come to our factory or our shop, sit around, watch what we're doing, and understand our business. They were making relationship-specific investments into my business, which is why when you went back for renegotiation or you went back to another contract, they kept winning the contract because they know my business. And as a result, I cannot get the efficiency of the market. The way to break that lock-in is by making my service less specific. So the vendors provided standardized service, and which we will see the same thing with the cloud. The second trend I want to pick up in outsourcing is the fact these IT outsourcing vendors' capabilities have increased. Vendors now are offering to innovate your business, as I mentioned earlier. But why are they offering to innovate on your business? Increasingly, there's pressure on the client firms to keep the cost of outsourcing at a fair minimum or a fair level. So the conversation has moved towards, pues, you guys are the guys who are innovating. Why should we grow the contract? You innovate, you lower my cost, and whatever differential that you make, let's put that back into your innovation project. Go on. So we have just changed the incentives for the vendors to not just do manpower or project-based, but for them to survive, they need to innovate. Otherwise, the key account manager doesn't grow his business. So by flipping that, we have forced the vendors to finally innovate. Another interesting thing is, if you, even in your report, to some extent this comes up, what we seek from the vendors is innovation, but what we know how to measure is SLA. And that's a bad paradox. It's like Instituto Empresa wants me to do this talk because it makes us look good. But what do I get my raise on? Whether my teaching satisfaction is good. So if I stay here longer to make you happy, I lose my class, and therefore I lose my metric that they can measure me on. They cannot measure me on how well I do this. We have the same problem with outsourcing, except we are seeing a change that the vendors are willing to take on the risk of innovation that they weren't doing in the past. So now you will find more vendors' ability to take on fixed price or revenue sharing kind of arrangements. If these guys are willing to do that, we should probably expect that, I'm going to skip this, we should probably expect that cloud computing providers will also play this game in a few years' time. You might not buy Google only on the server capacity. You might not buy Amazon only on how much RAM they put on the machine, but how much your business grows as a result of Amazon service. So Amazon and Lyft might actually have a joint venture, but it's not a joint venture. It's just aligned incentives. Right? And as a result, you might also see cleverer contracts, not just contracts that can be listed in an Excel chart. I'm willing to bet in your organizations as well that there is this convergence of departments. An investment into technology, I don't know if you can tell, is an investment by the marketing department or the IT department or the finance department. And that's a good thing for the outsourcing world. That's not yet a good thing for the cloud computing world, because cloud computing so far is understood by the IT department. Right? But if you look at investment in Salesforce, the beneficiary is the marketing department. Right? So you are likely to see increasing convergence in who consumes the cloud, and as a result, I'm going to come to this in the end, my hunch is this role of the CIO is changing dramatically. This is from your report, and I want to pick up just this. So we can measure the relationship between price and functionality. That's why we measure it. But is this what we want from the cloud? Maybe today, yes, but I think in a bit this will change. The third aspect, the third trend I want to touch upon is this strategic importance of ITO. Nobody is doubting that ITO is a strategic necessity now. Right? That you cannot exist without ITO. It's a dominant way of sourcing technology. As I mentioned earlier, it gives you access to skills that you didn't have. The CIO now is not a purchase manager. The CIO now is a relationship manager, because the CIO needs to be friends with the provider of the IT service so that they have shared vision. If this happens, you will also see the overlapping roles of the CIO, CMO, and the CFO. I'm not very happy that this gentleman is here, because historically, IT department has not liked the fact that they were reporting to the CFO. And after many years, we were happy that we had a CIO and we could command our own budgets. But this is changing again for the following reason, that outsourcing is seen, cloud computing investments is seen less as investment and more as expenses. When the heading, when the title, when the concepto goes from investment to expenses, then the finance department wakes up and say, oh, this is my territory now. And that's a change that we're seeing once again. So I call this the CUXO, and I'm making this up. I hope it becomes popular. What I mean by CUXO, and you touched upon this in the previous presentation, is with this whole interest in digital transformation, what did two companies do that have identical IT infrastructure? Between ING Direct and Banco Santander, the IT infrastructure is by and large similar. But the user experience of dealing with ING is very different from the user experience of dealing with any other bank in that whole. I'm just speaking on Banco Santander because I have accounts there. So, therefore, the chief innovation officer, chief information officer, now is a chief user experience officer, because the control on the IT infrastructure is lost. The IT infrastructure is managed by Amazon or Google. What can I do? I can change the way my look and feel happens. I can change my customer journey. I can understand consumer behavior. And for us, on the vendor side, IT people, we don't know these things. We've known how to configure servers, and we can do that very well. And we can deal with vendors. Now, the CIO has to figure out how the user is going to interact with the cloud service. If I put a chatbot, how is that going to affect my customer experience? These are things that we've never thought of before. So the role of the CIO is changing. And as a result, we have an interesting paradox that the CFO is coming back into IT decisions. So these are the three trends that I wanted to pick up on. So in summary, I think what we've seen in IT outsourcing in the last 10, 15 years or so, given the rapid pace of change, we'll probably see in cloud computing now, maybe 4 or 5 years. And I think if you're better prepared to anticipate cleverer contracts, better relationship management with our cloud providers, we might be in a position we can leverage the innovation that these guys can come up with. I would think of cloud providers today as infrastructure providers, but tomorrow as strategic partners, just like one thought of IT vendors. Today, the priority for cloud computing is cost reduction, just like it was for outsourcing 15 years ago, 20 years ago. But if we can think ahead today to think of cloud computers as strategic innovation providers, where we buy innovation as a service, not infrastructure or platform, then we might be able to exploit these service providers better. So that's all I have, and I hope I'm on time. Thank you for your attention. I'm open to questions for a few minutes. Preguntas en español, sí.
How do you foresee the role of the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer? Because you mentioned a public user experience.
That's what I mean by convergence of departments. Increasingly, you're seeing, so IT department, the joke used to be they're in the basement and all the decisions are taken in the boardroom, right? But IAOP's survey also mentions the increasing role of the CEO in IT decisions. And if the CEO is paying attention to which server and which computer, which provider, and so on, I'm guessing the CMO is finally going to start paying attention to the CIO's ability to help his business. So we've always talked about business IT alignment, which is something we had to force. We want the IT people to understand business. We want the business people to understand IT. But what's happening now is you don't get IT from anywhere else. You get IT from the same source. And therefore, the CMO realizes that if they're going to change business, developing a customized solution is doesn't exist. So what do I do with the standard? What do I do with the standard infrastructure that I get, and who can help me with that? This role that I call CUXO, or maybe it is a CIO that evolves. Okay, if there's no more questions, I encourage you to enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much, and I'll rush to my class to meet my KPIs. Thank you.